and welcome back. It's DIY Dan here, back with the second part of my series on the passenger fender for my 68 Cutlass. In the first part, I reviewed the fender, went over what needed to be done to it, which was basically cut out the bottom part right behind the front wheel, and cut it out, fix the brace, weld in a part of the brace, and then weld in the patch panel, and then get ready for the second step. Now, to start out with, I've already done a little bit of work on this panel, getting it ready for the primer that I'm going to put on next. So let me turn the camera around and show you what's going on. Accomplished on the fender so far is I got the fender in Bondo. So this is just one layer of Bondo that I put on here, and I sanded, and it looks pretty decent. I really don't see much wrong with it. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I've not only put that on and smoothed everything out. Show you both sides here. It's good to go. That's smooth. And then I just went through and I buffed or cut this panel here. Used to be a much shinier black. I went ahead and cut it with 150 grit sandpaper on a DA sander, and just went around this whole thing and basically smoothed it all out. And it is ready. Thankfully, nothing on my hands. It's ready to be painted. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. I'm gonna get this thing ready for the first coat of Dupli color primer paint. It's their auto paint system. So let me show you what we're gonna do. And all right, well, I've changed my mind, and I've decided that I'm going to work on a couple of little areas right here. I see just a little dent here, and maybe a little imperfection in the Bondo over here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get you all in the frame. There you go. And I'm gonna try this product. I've never used it before, but it's a Bondo glazing putty. Instead of mixing up a new batch of Bondo, I'm just gonna try this little glazing putty. Let me grab my thing here. First thing you got to do is puncture this. All right, it's punctured. We'll take a little bit of this spot putty, put it on here. That should be enough. Put the cover on so it doesn't run out. All right, let's see how it goes. These are real tough. You can't even barely feel them. But I'll just try to fill in these little tiny little divots. Give that about 20 minutes, they say, and come back and see what I have. I'll just probably just run over it with, I think I had 250 on here last. I'll come back with some 250. Either 150, 250, and hit this up. So let's give it a few minutes to dry and then bring it back. All right, and we're set up for outside now. I'm gonna go ahead and sand these down. It's been 20 minutes. They feel good, nice and hard. Let me go ahead, and I went ahead and put on a new shade of 150. So this is 150. It'll cut through here pretty quickly, and then I might just touch up a spot up here. So something that I like to hit a little better. So let's go ahead and get this done.
Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. Waiting and always.
All right, so it's just that quick when you're working with this. Let me get this side a little bit. That's perfect. Looks good. Pick these couple of spots I want to get. Now the next thing is to go ahead and wipe this down and get ready to start mixing the paints. Now the way that I wipe this down is I just take some regular old Windex and I spray it on here and just wipe her down. So let's do it.
Hesitating, kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
Okay, that panel is nice and clean now, so really dust free, and she's ready to go. So let's go mix some paint. Okay, and I'm back at the paint mixing center here in my garage. Right now I found I've got my Devil Bliss, this GTI Pro, or is this just GTI? I don't remember. That feels a little bit tight. I'm wondering why that is tightening up, but I've got to look at that. Since there is no needle in here right now, I'm not sure why that is a little tight. I guess because I haven't used it in a while. But anyways, I got the largest nozzle that I have in this set for this gun, which is a 1.5 millimeter hole in the end there. It does have two other sizes for different things. This is the one they recommend for primers. So I'm using the paint shop primer that they have. It's a lacquer. I'll be setting this gun up as soon as I get it working here. I will show you how I set it up right after I free up this handle. It's a little tight. That's odd. Well, let me come back in a minute and find out what's going on with it. Okay, just to prove nothing is ever easy, I have had this gun for probably 10 years and I have never had that stick. So I went ahead and took it out. The first thing I did was take this handle off. It's a weird handle. Now I know why I never took it off, because of what you have to go through to take it off. It's actually held on by two screws that have, let me get it into two flathead screws. They turn around and they screw into each other and hold that handle on there. And to try to get two screwdrivers on each end of that tool, or on each end of this thing while holding the paint gun solid, is quite a little trick. Probably why I never took it apart. But anyways, what you end up pulling out of there is this spring-loaded actuator. And what you can, I don't know if it's coming through, but I think it is. On the end here, you can see how it's a little corroded. And when I take it apart, pulls apart a little tough, you can see that there is a little bit of corrosion on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stick this into some paint solvent here, some paint thinner, and clean it up a little bit. I'll let that sit for a minute or two, and I think I have a piece of steel wool, so if that stuff doesn't come loose, that crust that is on there, I'm going to go ahead and knock it off with the steel wool. The rest of the gun is looking pretty good. That's about as much as I've ever taken that gun apart. Normally I just take this top side out And I never even really, I don't think I take the fan control out too much, but anyways, I never took the handle off, and anyways, that's what you got, a little bit sticky. So go ahead and clean that up. Then I can get the paint ready to go in, and then I'll show you how I do that. Alrighty. Right, and I got the pieces all cleaned up. So you didn't miss much, just soak them in some paint thinner. I cleaned up all of the pieces here. Let me make sure I get the right ones together here. So I'm only trying to put together the stuff that I'm trying to put together for right now. All right, so there's the 2 screws that screw together that hold on the handle. Here's the 2 pieces that give you the pressure while you're pushing on the handle. And for this, they were a little stuck. I was able to clean that up. I didn't have to go use any steel wool. So basically the way I did it was I soaked these both in the solution, put it back in here, the reverse order here, and went back and forth until that guy slid through there very nicely. So really it goes together from the other end. It doesn't make too much difference which way it goes. It clears out that hole. And now that slides through there pretty good. Probably as good as it ever has. So yeah, that's something that I never had to do before or clean before. And now that I've done it, you know, I'll probably make that more of a regular habit. I've never had that kind of seize up like it did there. I really didn't see any paint on it, but you did see that corrosion. So something corrodes in there. So let's go ahead and put this back together. So let's take these 2 pieces, put them back in. That plastic nub kind of seals against there, and then this whole thing goes inside this cavity of this paint gun. Put that in there. It is spring loaded, but not too bad. So that actually is not too bad to start. Definitely screws together. I still see, oh, that looks like it's already pretty tight on there. So then I'm just going to take their tool, find the right one, and tighten her up. I did have to use a socket to get that out of here. It was on a little tighter than I thought. So I broke it loose with this tool, but it was kind of grainy, you know, like it had corrosion on it, but it's going together much better than it came apart. So should be bottoming out here soon. Okay. All right, bottomed out. Just give it a little snug. I definitely don't want to crank down on anything on this tool. All right, we put the handle back on. I don't think it matters which way this goes, so we'll put the sleeve through there, make sure it comes out the other end. Then take this other screw, screw it in here, just so you can see what's going on. Putting that screw back in there. And then this is the interesting part. Let me check it real quick. Oh yeah, that slides really good. So that was the fix for that. Try to show you, gotta get 2 screwdrivers here. One on the bottom of this. It's gonna be as much fun as it was the first time. And then the other one on the other side. All right, just tighten them up. All right, just snug. That isn't gonna come apart. Okay, so that is back together. Now I'm gonna take the 1.5 fluid tip. The writing on these is really small. I doubt you're gonna be able to see it. Let's see if I can find it. It's hard enough to find it. I gotta bring out a magnifying glass just to see it. I might have went by it there. I can't really tell. But it's written on that facet. One of these facets has it written on. That might be it right there. And that's the size of the tip. And I'll take my word if you don't see it. but that's 1.5. Just go ahead and put the fluid tip in there. Take the Devil Bliss tool. That's the one, just a little snug. Put the end on it. I don't know if there's probably a right way or a wrong way to put this on. I tend to line it up like that, so the writing's at the top, and then I just go ahead and snug it up a little bit. For the needle, I was looking at the needle here, and for a minute I couldn't tell whether or not that needle looked like it had anything wrong with it, but right now I'm going to say it looks okay. It feels smooth. I don't feel any notching or anything on it, so I'm going to guess that it's okay. Hasn't been giving me any problems, but it was a little stuck in there. I don't know what happened the last time I cleaned, but apparently something wasn't happy, so that was a little stuck itself. Didn't really see why, other than just sitting there a while. So I go ahead and put the spring in there, and then I put the cap on. Hopefully it doesn't go sailing across the room, because it is under some pressure. All right, so it started in there. Now the way that I like to set them is, this is the fluid control for the needle that's going through. Make sure I get you inside. And this is the fan control on how wide that's going to be. So I'm going to open them up. I'll have them both open. Now I'm going to close them down. Now the way that I'm going to know how far to go with this is, I'm going to close this down all the way, and then I'm just going to keep turning the seat until the seat just hits. And now it's just hitting there, and it's starting to try to push the handle away. So let me get it again. Right there is, it's engaging the handle, and it just stops. I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to leave it there. The fan control, I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down all the way. It's bottomed out there, and then I'm just going to take it. There's a little plastic notch on there, but I'm going to take it. That's a half a turn. Let me go back, reset it again. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go back out about a half a turn or so. All right, so that should be set up generally the way that I start. And of course, you can make your final adjustments once you're out there. But that's how I do it on this one, and really all of them. I have two Devil Bliss guns, the GTI, and I forget what the starting line, I think, is the other one. So, all right, so the next step would be to go ahead and mix the paint. So the last thing to do to the gun really is put on the paint holder. So it's got a little whoop, I gotta get used to this camera. Get this little filter on it. The filter goes in as such, so that little tab is hanging out, and then it's just a matter of slipping it into the gun. Tightening it up, get it there, and then you just take this tool, whichever one it is, there it is, just barely snug it up. Then I'm gonna go ahead and get out the holder for the gun. Let's see, where is it at? It's up here. All right, there's my holder. Stick it in the holder. Also check in the inside. It's pretty clean. That was sealed up. I don't see anything, and I don't feel anything, so I'm going to say it's good. Just go ahead and rest it on its stand right there. I think at this time, since it's easy, I'm going to go ahead and put on the attachment for the air gauge. It shows me how much air is in it. So one sec. All right. So this is the gauge that comes with the gun, and it tells you the air pressure where you should be. Generally, right around 30 pounds 30 pounds of air pressure. And I got a new device this year. So this painting, I'm getting more and more professional on, I feel, every time I do this. So I have, I guess it's in the other drawer, pardon my face. Okay, I have this little end right here, and I picked this up at Harbor Freight. And what it does is it controls, you just turn this valve here, and you can meter how much air is going to this thing. Because I tell you what, you can try to meter the air with this guy here, but if you're like me, you won't have much success. The compressor that I'm using puts out about 150 psi, and it's just too hard to regulate. And I didn't want a really super expensive. I don't do that often. So I found that this little guy here, I believe, is going to do the trick for me, and I'll be able to regulate the air much better. And anyways, we'll see how it goes. But let me go ahead and stick that on the gun now. All right, no, it's not quite the frame. I'll watch how I do this. All right, with all this equipment, you just barely, you put it on there, and you just give it a little bit of a turn. There, just trying to make it snug. Then what'll happen on here is this little valve will sit right in here, and then this will connect to the hose, and at the other end of the hose, I will have a dryer on it to take out the water out of the air, and we should be good to go. So let me go ahead and add the paint, and we'll take it to the next step. Now, mixing this paint, I just opened up this can, and there's feels like about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of crud on the bottom of this, and that's typical really of any paint. If you spend any time painting, and you can see that crud on the paint stick. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get this mixed up. I don't know how long this stuff's been sitting on the shelf at the auto parts store. I just picked it up yesterday, so it's probably been sitting there a little bit of time at least. So I will mix this up, and then I had a little bit from the last time, and I stirred it up. So then I'm going to take some of this and mix it in with that. And then when this is all done, then it'll be going into the paint gun, which has got the filter on it. And this thing is going to catch some clumps if I don't get that stirred up. And that's the main thing. I do not want those clumps getting into, I'll get as many out as I can, but sometimes it's, you're still going to find some stuff that you don't feel on the bottom here. That is, you feel like it's all, like this is coming along pretty good. You'll think that this is all mixed up pretty good, and you start pouring it into there, and then you'll start seeing those little clumps. Well, those clumps will not get past that filter and that strainer, and then that'll keep your gun from getting blocked up. So I definitely would not fill up my gun without, even though the gun has a filter in it in the bottom, as you just saw, I would not do it without, unless I strained it through that strainer there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then bring you back when I'm getting ready to fill this gun up. Well, I got done mixing the paint, and I probably did this for about 5 minutes, and I think that's about as good as it's going to go. And then I poured the little bit of paint that I had in the gun, and this is what the strainer caught. So hopefully you can tell, you know, that there's a lot of crap. Even though it felt like it was stirred up, there's a lot of crap in there. It just doesn't want to come out. So I'm just going to take it, scrape it. You know, actually that plugged it up pretty good. So you know what? I'm not even going to screw around with it. I'll just go ahead and get another filter. All right. tight quarters in here. All right, so we got a new one. We'll stick it in there. We're gonna set this off to the side. Let me find my paper towel. There we go. Now I did that trick that I saw on some YouTube channels before, where they take some tape and they make a V shape out of this. And supposedly it helps you, you know, control the spillage of this and control how this flow comes out of this can. I think it works better than nothing. It works better than just having that rounded lip down there that the paint can offers. So this will give it a little more pouring type of situation. Hopefully I don't end up with a ton of this on my shirt, but we'll find out. Here we go. Okay. That is about half, well, maybe not half, just about half. Let me go a little more. Okay. Not the most elegant solution. Keeps going. So the paint is only up to about right here in the gun. So I got some room. And since where I'm painting this is a ways away, I'm going to go ahead and fill this up further. All right. Let's try that much. Okay, and I think that that's going to be good. Let's let this drip off here. All right. Not too bad of a mess. When you're working with paint, this is what you're going to run up against. All right, so the paint is taking its time going through the strainer. Part of the problem is the strainer's sitting down inside the liquid. Let me go ahead and grab my paint stirrer, see if I can help this paint make it through the strainer. Sometimes you have to help it a little bit. All right, it's flowing. Just scraping away some of the particles that just don't ever seem to dissolve away as much as you try. That's what I've noticed, at least with this paint. All right. Come on. All right. All right. That's probably about as best as I'm going to do. Stick that back in the can so it can drain back into the can. Bring you over here to the gun. You can see that gun is just about full. So now I'm going to take my cover. Where did I put my cover? There you are. Keep the little top here off. When I put this together, I'll put this cover back on, because what that's going to do, as I'm moving the gun around, that'll prevent the paint from actually coming back out on me. And it does have a little vent up here, so there is a little hole in there. So it will let air in, but it won't let the paint out. So then we'll put this sucker on. And he fits on there pretty tight. Heard the air being pushed out when I put it down. Now I'll just put on the top so I don't forget about it. And then I'll meet you out back and we'll paint. All right, so this is back out to my compressor that I have outside here. As you can see, it's 150 horsepower or 150 psi, horse and a half compressor. It's going to be running. It's going to be a little busy while we paint here. It's probably not optimal if you wanted to paint a car, but if you're just painting some parts, it'll work. I got my water separator here, so these little beads in that thing collect the water as it goes through. into a high flow connection. And then back out, here to my work area. Now what I usually do is I paint the inside of the fender first, just to get it out of the way. That way there's no real good way I can have to hold this thing. So I just lay it on the ground and got the sawhorse back there just so it doesn't want to tip over. And then try to come in and then get both sides of this thing, give it a chance to dry, and then pick it up and put it on a sawhorse to paint the outside. So that's what I'm going to do. I got the paint gun set up now. Like I said, I got the metering valve there. I can look at my pressure and adjust the needle as necessary to about 30 psi. I got a full can of paint. So let me put you in the tripod and get started. And here we go. So I'm super stoked. That was the first time that I've used this little gadget right here. I was always trying to adjust the air with the valve on the back of here, on the back of the gun. What a difference using this guy here. And that's like a $3 or $4 part, maybe $5 part. And what a difference. It really cut down that airflow like I needed so I could keep my gauge at a decent pressure. Because before I would just get, you know, some orange peel and stuff like that because I was just spraying too hard. But this is after one coat. You know, you can see some dark areas still, which is fine. We're only on the first coat. I came back and hit this off camera on the inside here. I know it's a little hard to see in there, but I hit it there, and I hit a couple of the spots up here that once I flip this fender around, it's going to be hard to get to. So I got to those. And then on the inside here, I got the inside there. So this only takes about, you know, maybe 10-15 minutes to harden up enough where you can spray that second coat. So it's already ready to go. So let me put this back in the tripod and get set up and shoot the second coat. All right, so I'm ready. Let's put on the second coat.
With crimson secrets and forbidden bliss, can't stay still, don't stop that thrill. My bones crave your skin, temptation within, mistakes ignite the silence. Nightmares creep while you and me repeat this bittersweet heat.
All right, well, the compressor's running. I'll bring you back after it shuts down. All right, second coat is on, and it's looking pretty good. I'm happy with the coverage and the way that it looks. It's kind of hard to go from black to white in one coat, but two coats definitely did it. The primer feels nice and dry now. Yeah, let me go ahead and get this reversed around and we'll paint the outside. All right, I'm gonna paint the top side and then pick it up a little bit so I can get to the bottom here. So let me go ahead and get this done.
Is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
Let me go ahead and move the fender. Give it time to dry and come back. Well, after one coat, I think we're looking pretty decent. It goes on, well, I laid the coat on, you know, probably fairly thick. Went back a few times, but overall, it has pretty good coverage. And it was important to me to get this into primer because around here, you know, it feels damp most of the time, a lot of humidity in the air, and it will let this paint, or rather the metal, rust. And I am trying to stop any rust before it happens. So, oops, I should not have touched that. I'll have to hit that again, but it's not quite dry there, it's a little thicker there. I did see one area, I think, that I'm gonna have to come back and get. Looks like I missed a spot. And I'll probably put some spot putty on there. But after it dries, and we'll fix up any imperfections here. And then it should be ready to go into top coat. Things are moving along pretty good. I'll give this adequate time to dry. I've used at least 1 can of 1 quart of the Dupli primer on here, so it takes a lot. I mean, don't underestimate how much paint you're going to need. This is just one fender. Of course, I did it both sides, and I put, you know, I will put 2 coats on it, but it'll take over a quart to do that. So don't underestimate, you know, how much paint it's going to take. All right, let me get the second coat on and bring it back. Second coat is on and it's looking pretty decent. You'll see a line right here where the trim is. I'll probably be going over this with probably around a 400, maybe start out with around 250, make my way up to 400 or so on those couple of areas. Anything that doesn't look as good as we want before we start putting on a top coat, but I think that this looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. You see the places that I taped off, those are those little rubber things, so when the hood comes down it doesn't bang against the fender. Anyways, there you go. All right, take a look at the sanding, and then we'll be moving on to the final coats. So see you then. Okay, it's the next day and I'm back working on the fender. The only thing you've missed is that I have sanded this side smooth. So I went over it with 400 grit sandpaper and you know, just took off a little bug mark that I had, a little fingerprint that I had in there, and just knocked them off with like I said, with the 400 grit sandpaper. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to put the Dupli color jet black on here. So let me put you up, and we'll start painting on just like I did before. I'll do the inside first, let it dry, see if I need to do a second coat on the inside, and then do the outside, wipe it down, and then do the inside. Okay, let me get you set up. All right, the gun is set up just like it was before, so let's go ahead and shoot this color. All right, I'll give that a little bit of time to dry and come hit it with the second coat. All right, ready for coat number 2 on the inside.
Set my heart in fire.
All right, there's first coat. Let me give it a few minutes and come back and do the second coat. All right, I just swiveled the fender just a little bit so I could get the bottom half better. I'm gonna go ahead and put the second coat on the outside now. Alright, second coat's on. Had to adjust the spray pad or adjust the pressure a couple of times because as it runs the pressure goes down because the compressor can't keep up, but other than that, went fine. Bring it back in a few when it's dry. Alright, and the paint has had a chance to dry now. So here's what we have after 2 coats. It's not looking too bad. Sprayed on the same that it always has. This is a 2-part system, so you know there's a clear coat that goes over this that gives it to make the jet black really, you know, darken up and come out. But it looks pretty good, feels decent. Let this set up overnight and check it in tomorrow and see if I want to do any touch-ups with it or if I'll leave it alone and get ready for the clear coat or not. All right, that's it for now. I just cleaned up the fender, and I'll show you a couple things, and I'm going to debate a little bit on how I'm going to handle them. Ended up hitting the fender with a broom while I was sweeping under it, and I noticed this little paint divot or missing little chunk of something. I never saw it before, so I'm gonna have to address that. And then on the final coat of paint that I put on here, I noticed a couple of runs. All right, get that off there. I noticed a run right here, and then somewhere over here, it's kind of hard to see. I think it might be around here somewhere. There might be a little run right there. So the good thing is they're not too, I mean, you can feel it, but it's not too bad. So I'm gonna go over it with probably 1500, 2000 grit sandpaper and another little divot right there. So a couple of these little divots, not sure how they got into paint, but they did. So I may have to put a little spot putty on there and then hit it with a little bit of paint. There's always, at least for me, something that you find out later. So I'm going to try to address them. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the paint job. Didn't look too bad. That other little spot that I had a problem, I'm having, there it is, having a little trouble seeing it, was right here. I may just sand it and hit it again with a spot of paint. But we're almost ready to go to clear. So I just wanted to show you where I'm at. And if I hit them spots up, if I decide to hit them spots up with spot putty, I'll bring you back to show you what it looks like. Well, I've made up my mind. I decided that I'm going to go ahead and hit these little spots that are on here and fix these little paint issues right now. This is, probably not the ideal time to do it, but there's one thing to remember, that it's only paint. So even though it may be something I'm not really interested in doing, it's not that big of a deal. I just sand them down and shoot a little paint on this. If this works out well, I may use my other gun, spray gun, to do this. And if this works out well, then I'll know I'll be able to fix little imperfections in my paint fairly easily. So I'm doing two things with this. I'm fixing problems on this Fender, little tiny problems. But if it works out well, I got a good method in going forward to fix any other kind of paint problems I have on any of my other projects. So I just wanted to bring you back, show you where I'm at. Like I said, I'm going to sand it down and shoot another coat on there. Right, and I just got done sanding over these little spots. That feels good. I hit all the spots, so everything is feeling pretty decent. I sanded out that little bit of a run. Barely feel anything there. I don't want to get too aggressive with it. That's it, and I hit all the other spots. So everything is looking pretty decent. All I gotta do now is just come back and hit it with a little bit of paint. So I'll figure out what gun I'm gonna use. If I'm gonna use the same one I always have, or if I'm gonna try a different technique. Do a little research and get back with you. The day is finally here. Has some wild parrots flying by. To go ahead and hopefully do the final paint on this Fender. It's a nice day out, but it's a little breezy. I brought out my smaller gun today, primarily because I haven't used it in a while, and I want to see what it can do. It has a 1mm hole in the front for the nozzle size. We'll see how it does. It'll shoot less paint, and I'm going to bring the fan down so that I can just hit the spots that I want, more like if I was just doing some other kind of repair, paint repair. So I'm going to try that. I like to see how to do all these things. So yeah, so let me go ahead and get you set up. And let's start. one paint. Let's see what it looks like, or one coat. Let's see what it looks like. All right. So, oh, it's coming out kind of blurry or hazy on my screen here. So there you go. The paint looks okay to me. I mean, it's looking a little, maybe hopefully it's just me, but that may be the effect of some overspray. I mean, it picked this up after one coat. Let's see, barely see. It's a very sensitive camera, I can see a lot. Barely see that. It doesn't look too visible. I mean, you have to get right up. I got this camera like 3 inches away from the panel here, so if you pull away a little bit, you don't see it. Looks like there's a little bit of overspray from the gun in here. I'm going to try to control the fan setting on this a little better. There we go. You can still see just a little bit of where I touched up. Hopefully that'll go away with the next coat. I'm fairly happy because I do have to spray the clear on here yet, and I'm just hoping. Here's where the run was. I don't know if you can see it, but you really got to get down if you want to see any remnants of it. But there's where it used to be. The panel's looking pretty decent. Now, start with, this is where I was trying to check the pattern on this gun to see what it looked. That pattern is still kind of wide. I try to close it up on this third hit, but even though I cranked it in a little bit, it still didn't seem to make much difference. The paint gun I'm using this time is a Devil Bliss starting line, and it's a decent gun. It's really a pretty good miser on paint, so I'm happy with that. It's the same setup as before. Well, you really need this control down here to regulate the air volume out of the compressor, though. Without it, it's a real disaster. Anyway, so let me get set up for the second coat. Let's see how it goes. All right, second coat time. Let me bring you back after the compressor's off. All right, here is after the second coat. Off camera, I put a little bit of paint on the bottom of each one of these things because I forgot that I wanted to do that, but that was it. You can see now that those areas have gone away. I mean, as far as being able to detect if there was ever a defect there, it is really hard to see if there was anything there. So I'm pretty happy. I was able to clear up any of the problem areas that I was seeing before, so I'm happy with that. Now the next thing to do is to go ahead, and you're getting a lot of reflection off of the sun's coming in here, but this was the area where the runs were. It's just difficult to see with all the sun reflecting off of there. There's a lattice fence behind me that's putting down those patterns. Anyways, the next step's going to be color sanding. which is taking about a 1500 grit sandpaper and just going over this just to knock off any high spots that might be on this paint. It'll make it not look so pretty again, but it'll be perfect for the clear coat to go on. I did want to show you my last. Okay, so this is what happens when I took the gun and I turned the fan control all the way down, and you pretty much get a shot like it's out of a spray can. Then I opened it up a little bit, and then I opened it up just a little bit more. That was, you know, that's really good. That's probably where I should have started instead of over here. This was the starting point. It gave me a little too much overspray, so I should have cut it down a little bit more, I think, if I was really going to do a spot for a particular repair. But I was happy with the gun's performance. I can tell you it's a pretty good paint miser. Like I said, it's got about I think I was shooting a 1.5 tip, 1.5 millimeter tip out of the other gun, and this one is at 1 millimeter. So that is a 50% drop in nozzle size. So that'll really cut down on how much paint you're using. So you know, paint's not cheap, but it's not super expensive either, and I'm happy with the result. So I'll let this dry for probably at least 24 hours and then come over it, like I said, probably with some 1500 grit sandpaper, just to knock off anything that is still remaining, and then I'll bring you back. All right, it's time to wet sand with 1500 grit sandpaper. All right, let me clean the panel up and we'll take a look. All right, now I just got done wiping down the panel, and the purpose of this sanding is to show us how smooth or how unsmooth it may be. It may be difficult to pick up, but just a little bit of orange peel, it looks like there. It might be hard to see, but I'm not getting, there's some spots down there you can see where the sandpaper dulled it, and then there's still some like darker black under it, so could be a little smoother there. The rest of this is feeling pretty decent. So I'm just noticing some spots. The shinier spots are the ones that I'm more worried about because they didn't get as polished, like right down here. So you got to be really careful when you're doing this not to burn through on any edges. But don't worry about the haziness of the paint. Once the clear goes on there, I'll kind of show you what's going to happen. I'll just take a little bit of water here, and the clear is just going to be like this water. When it goes on there, it's going to leave a really brilliant black. So I mean, That's what the clear does for you. It just gives you that wet look. So it'll be fine. Just got to make sure the paint's where I want it. So I'm gonna spend a little more time sanding, and then she'll be ready for clear. Well, I did one more little sanding on here with another sheet of sandpaper, 1500 grit, and I think it's looking pretty good. It feels smooth. I think we're gonna end up with a fairly good result. Yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is when you're doing this, that sandpaper is going to catch. Even though it's 1500 grit and it doesn't sound like it will catch on paint, it's going to catch. And when it catches, that's where you know you're going to have to spend some more time, because you want that sandpaper just sliding over top of the paint. And if it's gripping, I mean, it gripped a couple times, about gripped the block right out of my hand. So yeah, it'll catch on little high spots on the paint. So make sure you spend your time, and don't just use one piece. Use, you know, I probably use 3 or 4 pieces of 1500 grit sandpaper just on this fender. So, you know, don't be afraid of the sandpaper. It's a little pricey, but it's worth the extra time. So this panel is really ready for clear. It's going to get cold tonight, so I'm not going to shoot it today, but I'll bring you back when I do. And till then, the day is finally here. It's time to, it's been a few days since I was out here, but it's finally time to spray the clear coat. I'm looking forward to that. The paint's hardened up sufficiently. As you saw, I roughed up the paint just to get everything smooth. I wiped it down with Windex like I've done before, and I'm ready to shoot the clear. So let me go ahead and get you set up and we'll start. Let's begin. That'll take about 15 minutes to dry, then we'll be back. First coat is on and dried now, and it's looking pretty good. I'm really happy with the results. And I tell you, things have gone pretty well. It was easy to do. Of course, this is my second time doing a panel out here, so I'm better this time than I was the first time. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. So I'm gonna go ahead and put you back on the tripod and let's shoot coat number 2. I think I'm gonna go for 3 coats. That gives me a little extra thicker coat, just so that I can buff on and everything and not have to worry about burning through. So let me get you set up. All right, let's go. All right, coat 2's on. I'm gonna add a little more clear to the thing and I'll be back. All right, we're ready for the 3rd coat, so let's get started. Let it dry and take a look. All right, and here we're looking at the 3rd coat, and I think my eyes is looking pretty good. I did see, what would a paint job be outside without a bug landing in it? So, I'll have to probably come over this clear and then go through the same process you saw me go through with the color sanding, where I had to color sand the paint to get it nice and flat. Well, I'll probably do that same process with the with this. So I'll have to come out here with 1500 grit sandpaper and scuff it up, and then bring my buffer out here and go over that. But yeah, I'll probably do that in maybe a different part here. But I'm pretty happy with the paint job for doing it outside in the backyard. I think it came out all right, considering that was the whole reason I was out here. If you remember way back in the other beginning, in part 1, I had to cut out this fender, weld in the new section, fix the support brace that was behind it, and then I think I remember showing you, how the bad old lacquer paint job from before was in tough shape and was peeling back or bubbling up or whatever. So that caused me to have to do this whole fender. So it's looking pretty decent, and what else? Yeah, I was just going to tell you that I did change the nozzle in the gun to the smallest one I have, which I think is 1.3. I think I have 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. And I switched out to the smallest setting, and yeah, and went ahead and did that. And okay, well, I'll give you my final thoughts. My final thoughts on this was I was pretty happy with the way that this turned out. This is the passenger side fender on my 68 Cutlass. I did the drivers before. The drivers was the first time that I ever got as radical with a fender, you know, cutting it apart and rewelding in new sheet metal. And this one went better than the first one. Everything on the second one went a little bit quicker than it did on the first one. Because the first one I had not as much experience doing it, but it didn't stop me from wanting to try it. You know, with every project I get into, the worst thing that can happen is, you know, I fail, and if for some reason I can't fix it, then I just have to call somebody that can. But I wanted to be able to tackle this, and I'm pretty happy. Like I said, everything's a learning process. The Dupli paint shop system, I'm more impressed with it the second time around here than I was the first time. I had never used their paints. You don't reduce their paints at all. I don't know if I covered that, but you don't reduce the paints, you don't reduce the primer or the clear coat. So you just stir it and pour it right into the sprayer. I've learned much more than I did, and I like this process because, you know, I got to see the differences by recording with my different paint guns what each gun's strong and weak points are, because you don't do it all the time. You forget, at least I have. And it was good to refresh myself on what the different guns are used for, you know, how each one has its plus and minuses. And you know, the same thing with all the other materials I tried. The spot putty. The one thing I want to mention on the spot putty was that stuff sands really quickly. You can even take like a 400 grit sandpaper like I did and hit it, and it knocks it down incredibly quick. So just be careful of that. While it's really handy, it's not quite as tough as Bondo is. So, you know, just treat it with a little more care as you sand it. But it sprays well. It turned invisible. You put 2-3 coats on and everything, and it's gone. So I'm happy with the 3M spot putty. Like I said, the Dupli paint system's good. Everything went pretty good, and I'm really happy. This is something that you can do if you have any skill level. I think it's possible, and like I said, every time you'll probably just get better. So if you like the video, like it. If you don't. If you want to follow me as I go through my other projects, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.